Hello, welcome to the McGuffey's online tutor. Today's lesson comes from the McGuffey's 6th Eclectic Reader, the revised edition, lesson 47, Character of Columbus, part 2. Columbus was a man of great and inventive genius. The operations of his mind were energetic, but irregular, bursting forth at times with that irresistible force which characterizes intellect of such an order. His ambition was lofty and noble, inspiring him with high thoughts and an anxiety to distinguish himself by great achievements. He aimed at dignity and wealth in the same elevated spirit with which he sought renown. They were to rise from the territories he should discover, and be commensurate in importance. His conduct was characterized by the grandeur of his views and the magnanimity of his spirit. Instead of ravaging the newly found countries like many of his contemporary discoverers, who were intent only on immediate gain, he regarded them with the eyes of a legislator. He sought to colonize and cultivate them, to civilize the natives, to build cities, introduce the useful arts, subject everything to the control of law, order, and religion, and thus to found regular and prosperous empires. That he failed in this was the fault of the dissolute rabble which it was his misfortune to command, with whom all law was tyranny, and all order oppression. He was naturally irascible and impetuous, and keenly sensible to injury and injustice. Yet the quickness of his temper was counteracted by the generosity and benevolence of his heart. The magnanimity of his nature shone forth through all the troubles of his stormy career. Though continually outraged in his dignity, braved in his authority, foiled in his plan, and endangered in his person by the seditions of turbulent and worthless men, and that too at times when suffering under anguish of body and anxiety of mind, enough to exasperate the most patient. Yet he restrained his valiant and indignant spirit, and brought himself to forbear, and reason, and even to supplicate. Nor can the reader of the story of his eventful life fail to notice how free he was from all feeling of revenge, how ready to forgive and forget on the least sign of repentance and atonement. He has been exalted for his skill in controlling others, but far greater praise is due to him for the firmness he displayed in governing himself. His piety was genuine and fervent. Religion mingled with the whole course of his thoughts and actions, and shone forth in his most private and unstudied writings. Whenever he made any great discovery, he devoutly returned thanks to God. The voice of prayer and the melody of praise rose from his ships on discovering the new world. And his first action on landing was to prostrate himself upon the earth and offer up thanksgiving. All his great enterprises were undertaken in the name of the Holy Trinity, and he partook of the Holy Sacrament, previous to embarkation. He observed the festivals of the Church in the wildest situations. The Sabbath was to him a day of sacred rest, on which he would never sail from a port unless in case of extreme necessity. The religion, thus deeply seated in his soul, diffused a sober dignity and a benign composure over his whole deportment. His very language was pure and guarded, and free from all gross or irreverent expressions. A peculiar trait in his rich and varied character remains to be noticed, namely, that ardent and enthusiastic imagination which threw a magnificence over his whole course of thought. A poetical temperament is discernible throughout all his writings and in all his actions. We see it in all his descriptions of the beauties of the wild land he was discovering, in the enthusiasm with which he extolled the blandness of the temperature, the purity of the atmosphere, the fragrance of the air, full of dew and sweetness, the verdure of the forests, the grandeur of the mountains, and the crystal purity of the running streams. It spread a glorious and golden world around him, and tinged everything with its own gorgeous colors. With all the visionary fervor of his imagination, its fondest dreams fell short of reality. He died in ignorance of the real grandeur of his discovery, until his last breath. He entertained the idea that he had merely opened a new way to the old resorts of opulent commerce, and had discovered some of the wild regions of the East. What visions of glory would have broken upon his mind could he have known that he had indeed discovered a new continent, equal to the old world in magnitude, and separated by two vast oceans from all the earth hitherto known by civilized man. How would his magnanimous spirit have been consoled amid the afflictions of age and the cares of penury, the neglect of a fickle public, and the injustice of an ungrateful king, could have anticipated the splendid empires which would arise in the beautiful world he had discovered, and the nations and tongues and languages which were to fill its land with his renown, and to revere and bless his name to the latest posterity. Well, this is the end of lesson part 2. Join me again in lesson part 3. Peace be with you. See you soon.